When America was a young nation, our presidents didn't talk to the people much. They preferred writing letters to Congress and rarely gave speeches to the public. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson spoke to the public only about 3 times a year, and John Adams, he spoke only once. Adams even decided to spend 8 months of his presidency away from Congress and the fuss over the War of 1812, living quietly in Massachusetts. Abraham Lincoln, a wise man, thought it was best to avoid giving too many speeches. He once told folks gathered at Gettysburg, "I have no speech to make. In my position, it is important not to say foolish things. Sometimes, saying nothing is the best way." We haven't had such a shy speaker in the White House for a long time. Back then, before radios and TVs, presidents had to talk to the nation through newspapers. But then technology grew, and Teddy Roosevelt coined the term bully pulpit for the presidency. It meant that presidents could now speak directly to the people. Then came Franklin Roosevelt, who had a brilliant idea. He started something called Fireside Chats, where he talked to the nation through the radio. People loved it. They felt like Roosevelt was chatting with them personally in their homes. Before this, President Herbert Hoover got about 40 letters a day, but Roosevelt received a whopping 4,000 letters a day after starting his chats. Some even wrote letters addressed simply to "My friend Washington, D.C." A smart political scientist named Theodore Louis believes that since the 1930s, we've had something called a personal presidency. It's like a new agreement between the people and the president. We give the president power and support, and in return, the president is supposed to make sure we get what we want from the government. This personal presidency connects us to the government and helps us unite during tough times. People really care about having a strong leader as president, even though they might say they don't like big government. They want the president to make things happen. Roosevelt was the first president to use surveys to figure out what the public wanted and then tell them he'd make it happen. But here's the twist. When presidents get a lot of power, they often want even more. Roosevelt, after winning big in 1936, tried to pack the Supreme Court and control who ran for Congress. That didn't go so well. Nixon and Reagan, after their big victories in the 70s and 80s, also tried to grab more power, and we got the Watergate and Iran-Contra scandals as a result. It's like a cycle. They make big promises, get more power, and promise even more. Eventually, they promise too much. Nowadays, presidents promise less. Clinton, for example, focused on small things like school uniforms. He was great at talking to people like they were friends, and he understood the everyday problems of families. But here's the thing, the personal presidency isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Presidents are under a lot of scrutiny, and they have to be careful with what they say and do. The media keeps a close eye on them, and it's not easy to keep the public's trust. So that's the story of how our presidents went from being quiet letter writers to powerful speakers, and how they learned that too much power can be a tricky thing.